Phil Watts, born in 1954, born and raised in Port Hope. Spent most of my life here, with the exception of 10 years when moved out of town and just lived north of Coburg, out in the hamlet of Camborne. Married in Port Hope, got 2 kids, and what education? I just have my education from school here, high school here. I did start out, I played a lot of hockey in sports, as a few people know, in town. Came from a family of 7, I have 6 brothers and sisters. We were all born and raised here. Started to work in town. I worked for IF Campbell Limited, who had a heating and plumbing business just off of Barrett's Terrace. And how I got the job was one night sitting in a local watering hole. I think I might have been underage. After a hockey game one night, and I was looking for a job. I had just been done school, and Frank Guy, who was a tinsmith with Ivan, said, "Geez, we're looking for a guy. Would you be interested?" So sure enough, I went and worked for Ivan for a while, and I was going to take the apprenticeship, and was just enrolled in the apprenticeship when things kind of slowed down a bit, and got laid off and left there and went to work for Ken Schroeder. Ken Schroeder was a proprietor of the Canadian Tire Store on John Street. I guess he had taken it over from his father. And then I worked there for a bit, and then I got married, and in 1974, and I'd still worked for Ken at the time, and my father-in-law, who owned John Nisbet's Men's Shop Limited on Malton Street in Port Hope, had offered me a job in the business, so I decided that time I'd become part of the business, and worked for him from 1974 until 1981, when myself and his son, my brother-in-law Greg Nisbet, we took the business over, and I bought him out. And Greg and I both worked together at the store until 1985, and then we opened up a second store in Lindsay, Nisbet's Men's Shop, and he went his own way, I went my way. I stayed in Port Hope and ran the store until 1989, when I decided enough was enough, and that's when the mall was being built, and you know, looking after a business on your own, basically 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. I did you know, the buying, the selling, did the books. I did my own windows and whatnot, and it was just becoming too time consuming, not enough time for my family. So I decided to sell out, and we sold out in June of 1989, and then I went to work for J.E. Quantrill Chevels. Cadillac, who was moving from Ontario Street, where he had bought up the old Sculthorpe business in 1986, I think it was, and then he built out just to the south of Matthews Conveyor on Peter Street.
Now you say, Phil, that your dad had a business in town. Whereabouts did he have his business down?
Dad had a business. It was Central Market. It was on the main streets. Right across from, actually, Tim had mentioned earlier, Hutchings IGA, and it was, you know, he sold, you know, which is basically like a small grocery store. He also had an abattoir, which was located on. He bought that at a later date. He'd opened the store. I think he took the store over the Central Market from Warren Giddy, or about 1957. And then in 1959, he decided to close up the store, and he went out to the abattoir, where he had a custom meat business on Clifton Road, which now has all kinds of new houses built around it. And then he had the shop there, and then he sold out to my brother Dave, and then Dave eventually sold it to brother Mike, and then eventually they closed up as well.
So what other businesses in town sort of stand out in your mind as you're growing up in the town of
Well,
Portal?
like years ago, I can remember like when we had the clothing store, just to get back to how vibrant the downtown used to be. At one time, there was 5 menswear stores in Port Hope, all operating at the same time. There was Edwards Menswear, which was up beside the Toronto Dominion Bank, and then there was Len Owens Menswear, which is beside where the Watson's drugstore is now. There was O'Neill's Menswear, which was up beside the jewelry store that Churchley's owned. And then there was Fulford Brothers Dry Goods, where they sold men's suits and men's clothing as well. And then there was Nesbitt's Men's Shop. And all 5 clothing stores, did a fair business for a few years, but eventually there was only two of us standing at the end, and that was Nesbitt's and O'Neill's, who were, they were both well-respected businesses in Port Hope. And then back then too, there was like 3 or 4 menswear or ladieswear stores, like Shirley's Four Seasons. There was a House of Fashion. There was Risers. There was Margles. So I mean, the downtown Port Hope, it was pretty vibrant at one time. We always had regular store hours. Like the one thing I find with the downtown now is you go down there to shop and half the stores are open, half the stores are closed. They just can't seem to get together on things. Friday nights were probably one of our busiest nights through the week, because you would have the farmers. They would come into town, they would do their shopping, they would do their groceries, they would, because we carried everything, from work clothing to dress clothes. We tried to cater to everybody. So they would come in on Friday nights and do their shopping, and
So you're more or less saying that this is what you miss about the downtown Port Hope.
Oh, for sure.
How it used to thrive in the years, and
you used to be able to walk downtown Port Hope. You'd yell across the street, say hi to somebody that you knew. Now you walk downtown Port Hope, you hardly know anybody.
Yeah.
Like it's just not the same old homey feeling that it used to.
just like any historical events, like floods or anything that affected any of the businesses that you were involved with?
I remember the flood of 1980. We had the store there, and it was on the afternoon, the Friday afternoon, and the town workmen were coming into each store and warning us, anything being waste off, you get it off the floor. We were lucky we had a second floor jean shop upstairs, so we carried a lot of our clothing upstairs. We had a couple of business people from across the road come over to us and say, "What are you doing? I mean, look, nothing's going to happen." And well, later that night, when you're spending your hours and hours sandbagging and helping other merchants sandbag, and then you have other merchants sitting there going, "Geez, I wish I had listened. I wish I had taken my stuff up. I don't have insurance. I'm going to be ruined." And I mean, those people you can't really feel sorry for, but and they were longtime business people in Port Hope. So. And then going back years too, there was Old Time Christmas in Port Hope, which my father-in-law supported quite often. There's pictures of him and his help, dressed up in tails and top hats and capes and the canes and stuff, and it's.
Mm-hmm.